The top stories on our national dailies this beautiful morning, and definitely sure my guests cannot wait to dive right in. Let's look at the stories first and then I'll introduce we have this beautiful morning. Okay, we'll start with the Daily Times. Nigeria target top 80 on Global Human Capital Index by 2030. It's come from federal government. Nigeria targets top 80 on Global Human Capital Index by 2030. And we have some stories right there below. Military rescue 16 kidnapped passengers in Plateau. And we have other interesting stories right there if we just make it bolder, and we'll see them. There's something right there on the 2027 election. So surprising that conversations are already, happening regarding 2027, even though Nigerians are still grappling with hardship. And so we'll just move on to the next paper this morning and see what we have there. Genco threatens shutdown over 4 trillion naira debt as banned customers protest. Genco threatens shutdown over 4 trillion naira debt as banned customers protest. And okay, so I think I would just go to the next paper. We already seen something interesting that my guests might want to talk about. On Daily Independent, we have 54 killed, many injured in fresh attack on Plateau community. 2027 elections, PDP governors rule out joining any coalition. Genco's warn of looming shutdown over 4 trillion naira debt. And we have stakeholders all jammed to avoid early morning roster for UTME. All right, let's move on straight to my guest this morning. We have AGBINDA Sebastian. Good morning, sir. Good to have you as an analyst, and an analyst of repute, I must add right there. It's so good to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm sure with the 3 headlines, we're going to move on to more headlines, but with the 3, which one caught your attention?
All of them.
Okay, let's start with the Plateau incident. It's so sad that in 2025 we're still having these situations come up. It's almost like the government is not even focusing on what is going on to the people.
Which government?
Okay.
So we turn it around. Plateau government, federal government.
Federal government.
The security, in the absence of state and local government police, security is entirely, in the hands of the center. That is the federal government. And that is where the problem is. Nigeria presently almost, we are told here and there that we're in a low-grade civil war security status. That is to say that, civil war security status, low grade. That is, you are at the initial. War starts with saber rattling. Then it moves to where it starts verbally, a lot of hard talk, head talk. Then it moves into saber rattling, and then evolves into, border clashes, the type you had in the Ogoja area on the eve of the full-blown civil war. So we are now at a situation where we are told, internationally, that we are in the midst of a low-grade civil war in Nigeria, thrown up largely by, first others call it header farmer crisis, others call it, banditry, whichever way you want to, assess it. We are moving into civil war status. And it's around, if you want to ethnicize it, you are saying it's Fulani versus the rest of the country and all that. What is playing out in Plateau is also there in Benue. Then you had Uromi. There's a lot of noise making around Uromi. I call it deliberately noise making because you're having people are being killed in Plateau. And the Plateau is part of the north. Nobody, the rest of the so-called northern oligarchy, it's not talking about it. The same thing is happening in Benue. There are people killed in Benue on a regular basis. Nobody seems to care. Then some are killed in Uromi, which should be condemned, and is being condemned. But it's being condemned out of proportion to when you look at it from comparative, bifurcative perspectives. What about Plateau? What about Benue? Why so much noise making about Uromi? So If you had a state police, this would not happen. This cannot happen in other federations because you have state police, you have local government police. You even have a third area, which is this area. In the US, you have, you know, the security environment has been liberalized to the level of individual possession of firearms. So you'll be taking a risk if you're a Fulani marauder calling himself a herdsman. We're in the US and he wants to attack you. He would think twice because he understands that at the individual level, we're not coming to the county or local government yet. He could run into an assault. You know, you are permitted to have an assault weapon. Maybe in the state of Florida, for instance, you can just go in and pick a gun. So you think twice. They don't think twice in Nigeria. They understand that security is in the hands of the center. And there's a great effort by states like Kebbi and Sokoto to ensure that you don't have state police, you don't have local government police. Nigeria is one of the few countries that operate the federal system that don't have local government, state police. The moment you have it, you're unlikely to have what you have in Plateau or Benue or Uromi. If you have it, you liberalize it to the level of the individual, it becomes even entirely impossible. So that is where the problem is. Now, in the US and other countries, you don't just have federal, state, and local government police. You have several other, you know, security outfits. You have at the mayoral level, that is, within Abuja, you would have had Abuja Municipal Police. And that in itself makes it very, very difficult for, you know, consider it in an electoral crisis scenario, electoral crisis. If your state police want to misbehave because they think they are in the hands of the governor, which is not true, but they have local government police to contend with within the entity called state. Now you also have Homeland Security, you have layers and layers, FBI, NSA, and all that. We have reached a point in this country where we need to contemplate, you know, security reflecting federalism across the world. This is a misnomer. You don't have a federal system and then you have centralized police. It contradicts, and you have, and that tells you about the defaults in the Constitution. It's unitarized. We have a unitary Constitution, and we keep saying we are running a federal system. That is where the problem is. Plateau, Benue, Uromi cannot happen. It's unlikely to happen if you operated a federated security system.
All right.
It's as simple as that.
All right. So there's something you made very interesting points while you were speaking on this. You made mention about citizens, you know, having access to firearms, which is one of the things that Senator Ned Nwoko, if I remember clearly, has actually proposed before in the House about citizens holding firearms legal.
I would not recommend that. I know where you're going.
Okay.
I would not recommend it yet.
Okay.
You understand that if you look at the figures in the U.S., very few countries...
Gun violence.
Gun violence. We would want to recommend that. You want to... I will start at the local government police. They call it county in the U.S. When Nigerians hear county, they don't understand that it's local government. They keep saying county police.
Yes.
County is local government police. It's as simple as that, and we need to understand that, because when they come back here, they do not understand that we should have local government police. You can't have it at that individual level because the rates, the death in the U.S. don't advertise that to the rest of the world. That is federal systems. In the U.K., you don't have individual access to guns like you have in the U.S., but you have access to knives, and they do play them up a lot. They have knives, and most of the time in the U.S., when there are attacks of that nature, they are using knives.
Yes.
I'm not saying you should allow them have knives here either. I'm saying allow the local governments to have police, allow the states to have police. This is a federal system. And we shouldn't have unitarized system. That is and this unitarized system that we have, which is now federated around security, is in the control mostly of the same group that are, you know, in the leadership of the marauding I mean, the Fulanis, unfortunately. And the whole country is going through a phase where the headers are having it their way. They are armed AK-47, some say AK-49. And then the rest it's almost like you have, you know, and the Israelis do what they want in Gaza. And the Gazans are almost helpless. If you reverse it, some look at it in religious terms, Israel versus Gaza. And the Sultanate in Nigeria supports Gaza. But you have an occupation group here in the country supported by the Sultanate. And we call it Haida Farmer crisis.
Okay.
That's the contradiction.
Okay. Now, before we move to the next headline, which, of course, we have that of JAM, we have that of the GENCOs. I mean, it's still amazing that in 2025 we're still talking about power supply, electricity problems, and many of us, like myself, are wondering, what is the minister still able to do there?
Bottom line is, for a country, you have 220 million projected population for Nigeria. What are you talking about? 7,000. We're supposed to have something like a minimum 100 megawatts power. It's as simple as a demand and supply thing. Once you don't have it right, why are you now discriminating between so-called band A
band
and
C, band F?
Bottom line is work on the idea when the power sector was deregulated was that, you know, so much money was going to come in, FDI, the obsession with FDI will come in, and then there will be an expansion in productivity of power. It hasn't happened. So there's a need to go back and back to the drawing table, look at why, you know, in spite of the 220 million, that is demand. So supply means productivity. You have to produce more power. It's very similar. The power situation is very similar to the situation in cattle, in the livestock subsector. 220 million, you now have a minister of livestock and a special advisor, your former. Now they are producing, they don't produce cattle in Nigeria, they import. So you have a demand-supply crisis. The prices must go up. That is similar to what you have in power. So the best way to address it is how to get more power. You don't have up to 10,000 yet. That is a shame for an economy like Nigeria. And it impairs, you're talking of the tariff terrorism from Trump in the US. The implication for a country like Nigeria is that we should be seeing how we should be opportunistic about it. The countries that are complaining, they don't want to be victims of the tariff terrorism. They should want to come invest here. The Chinese should, when they come, they are told that, look, we're advertising our power crisis. Why would they want to come here? The labor is cheap, power is expensive. So it's almost like a no-go area. So we need to address power. It's in our interest. If you don't address power, you can't address industrialization. All the other positives you have in the context of attracting FDA are undermined when you don't address power. Of all the infrastructures, power is possibly at the primary, the most critical. So the advent of the alternative power, that is the green and then solar and all that, should also encourage us to go into that area too, because it's cheaper than maybe the hydro option. But once you don't do it, and like I gave you the example of the livestock subsector, we need to declare state of emergency in power, declare it in the livestock subsector, especially cattle, because the crisis is too much. We can't cope with the supply. I mean, we can't cope with the demand.
Okay. Do you think that it's time for the minister to leave? I mean, that's what on the street. That's
minister to
the minister of power to be out, to be changed.
Well, you have to change the next one too, because you can't address the problem in the day. It's not like switching on power. You can't address the problem in the next. So you almost say that Buhari should have left, all the other presidents should have left on account of
incapacity. Some people have described him as clueless, not knowing how to address.
We have not addressed power, simple, just like we have not addressed cattle in the livestock subsector. So, and there are quite a number of areas, so you could declare state of emergency in power, very much like you would declare in the subsector of livestock. And so if you are addressing it in the context of sacking, you will sack the next one on arrival because they haven't sufficiently, you would have sacked all the other ones. The problem has been there from Bola Ege to even earlier. You know, Bola Ege was yes. power during Obasanjo.
Interesting.
So the problem is fundamental. We haven't gotten it right. Okay. Now compare your country, Nigeria, with several other countries in the context of power or even livestock. And I keep mentioning power, livestock. There are so many other areas. You now understand that you need to declare state of emergency.
Okay. All right, so let's now look at some other stories. We did tell you something. One of the paper headlines carried something on JAM, saying that JAM launches Decor website, identifies 180 candidates who paid 30,000 naira for leaked exams paper. And this is coming from the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board. And of course, this website, according to the Registrar of JAM, Professor Ishak Oloyede, made this known during a press briefing in Buhari following monitoring visits to a computer-based test center. Now, the board actually created fake websites that mimic those operated by fraudsters, and just because they want to get hold of these people you know, to get these people who are paying 30,000 naira to get exam papers. This is really, I mean, it's a good step, and it's really sad that they had about 180 people involved in this. I mean,
only.
Well, I'm sure they're still on, so they will get more as time goes on.
Well, they have advertised, so nobody will climb onto the website again. If they had kept quiet, they would have gotten a bigger figure. I believe 180 is low. Because if you understand the size of the problem in terms of the various forms of malpractices in the subsector, you understand that 180 is low. They should have kept quiet. Just 180 is a small number to trap into the net. You know, the moment you publicize, you are unlikely to pick even more. So quietude should have been advertised, you know, a little bit of wisdom.
Oh, okay.
They spoke out a little early. Too early. It's a very small, 180 is very small when you will understand it. I know what it is. I am a lecturer too, and so I know how big the problem is. It's a much bigger problem nationally than that 180 they are touting. I thought they were talking of 180,000. It ought to be 180,000 or 180.
Okay, so probably they just launched it, and they are
so overwhelmed with it, and then they got excited, and they are coming out public. They should have been more circumspective.
I do believe that even with this announcement being made, some persons, because you don't know these websites, you don't know, you can't even identify this decoy website. So a lot of people will still, fraudulent people who want to buy these papers will still fall into the trap. Who
have not listened to the disclosures.
That's very correct. Let's look at some papers more and see what we have on some of the papers this morning. Let's look at them. Okay, The Nation. PDP governors disown Atiku on coalition measure. They're talking about 2027. NLC Apapa flex muscles over Labour Party. And Tinubu asks Plateau to confront ethno-religious crisis behind killers. Really?
Well, we discussed that earlier. It's in the hands of... These are for me, developments in Plateau, Oromi, Benue, and all that advertise the need to liberalize the security structures of Nigeria. That is, federal systems, like I said earlier, have state, they have local government, and they have, you know, and then national police outfits. You don't have, the place is over-centralized. And then as you go down, you know, it's the military type of system. The military, they want to protect their leader. So there's so much power at the center. And so they centralize the security agencies. And then they want to protect, the fellow who is head of state is overprotected. Down there, they don't feel any threat from below. So nobody paid attention to state and local government police. So you need to address that. And I'm sure the federal government, the Tinubu government, before Tinubu, when Tinubu was in the opposition, he continued to play up the idea of state and local government police. Now the Plateau, Uromi, the Zamfara, the Benue especially, these scenarios advertise the imperative for state and local government police. But there are islands there of, you know, people who are benefiting from the centralized police system in the country. I mean, policing or security system in the country. They are beneficiaries, and you see it out in the pockets of Zamfara, Sokoto especially, saying they don't want state police. When you ask them why, they cannot explain it sufficiently. We have an opportunity. These are opportunities for legislative action. This is amendment of the Constitution, and the executive and the legislators need to understand it. Once you have a crisis and it is of the magnitude we have in the country, it is an opportunity for you to amend the Constitution, to initiate new legislation and all that. The responses are not good enough.
Okay, it's almost like our legislators and
these are opportunities.
They are just
you have, for instance, you have the state of emergency in Rivers State. Now, given the very competitive discussions, pro and against that you have, there's an offering for legislative action. You need to rework the Constitution. So either to give the president powers to act like that, or to make it impossible for him to act. There's an opportunity for legislative action to amend the Constitution in that direction. The president can declare state of emergency in the livestock subsector, in electricity, like we mentioned earlier. The state governors sack local government chairmen, but can presidents sack state governors? So,
which according to the Constitution,
there is an opportunity. You have opportunities to rework, because in Nigeria, again, you have 3 tiers of government. Most federal systems have 2, only 2: federal, state. Local governments or counties are literally left in the hands of state governors. Now you have a 3rd tier here that collects monies from your federation account and all that. There are a 3rd tier. Arguably, Nigeria is the only country in the world that has a 3rd tier amongst federal entities. Now, if you have a 3rd tier, why should the governor sack somebody in that 3rd tier? But the president, when he sacks a governor, there are problems. You need to look at it. It's an opportunity to carry out legislative work, to attempt to work the Constitution, reposition the Constitution. Okay,
I do hope that the relevant authorities would pay attention to that. Two headlines before I let you go, Mr. Sebastian. The last paper did talk about the 300 million by the NBA, and the sole administrator is asking that the NBA should refund it. Let's see if we can have the last paper back.
Yeah, let's see it again.
Yes. So, yes, the NBA 300 million naira collected from Rivers, unconditional gift. That was the response by the NBA yesterday evening, and it's also on the papers this morning. So he's saying that the sole administrator is saying that they should refund the money, since the event is not going to take place in Rivers State. It has been moved from Rivers State.
That's part of fallout from your state of emergency.
Exactly. So the NBA is saying that it is an unconditional gift. It wasn't a bidding. It wasn't a bidding process to say, okay, this money was paid to bid for this event to be held in River State. It was more like when they want to have their conferences, they go to different state governments, they go to different sponsors to
so
say
if you want, no. I thought you should say that they advertise the NBA in the context of the size of patronage that is coming to the host state, in this case Rivers. If you allow us come in, this is what you would be, will impact your economy during that period. So the host governor understands that it also enhances his own
his
state and even personally. In this case, it may have been Fubara, I don't know. It may be. So the 300 is given out, and Fubara is seen as being a great governor across the country. It's doing very well. That's why. So a lot of underhand stuff is coming out in the open. It tells you about, we're talking about ethics and morality. If you collected a gift, and the entity that made that gift available, there is some crisis, and it says return it. You can quietly return it, and you avoid all this public exposure, because a lot of stuff is being thrown out to the public now. If I were an advisor to the NBA, I would tell them they should have brought that, given the money back even before. At the moment you now had a hostile entity, hostile administrator, who is saying, look, move it elsewhere. You say, look, we are going to give you your money to take back your money. It becomes very quiet. The moment you begin to hesitate, the NBA has a big reputation. It's not starving. There's no fiscal kwashiorkor around the NBA. It's one of the most,
put together, well-nourished.
Very nourished. They have very long pockets. They should dip into these pockets. It's a very small amount for them to relinquish. Why are they hesitating and, throwing it up to the type of analysis we're having? And it's going to, a lot of people will be analyzing it. So they collect money before governors give them rights of hosting or what. Of course, you want to say that the administrator should have been magnanimous, should have kept quiet, shouldn't have come to the public to request, would have used back channels and said, look,
I'll probably just write to them and say,
quietly, and make sure it doesn't hit the public. So I think it's not sufficiently
there are
magnanimous.
Sides to this, because in the response that was put out yesterday night by the NBA, they're saying that it wasn't a bidding amount. It wasn't, no state bids for hosting the NBA.
What about the NBA? Does the NBA advertise itself? Look, we want to host, we want you to host. Are you willing to host? Bidding is different from advertising under those circumstances. This is why I'm saying they should quietly have paid that amount back on request from the sole administrator. And I'm saying equally that the sole administrator should have shown more wisdom, should have been more magnanimous. First, one option, return the money and emphasize quietude. Secondly, is he willing to go to court for
part of it?
No, not part, everything.
Because you know one thing about events,
we are talking of what do you call it? The refundable deposit.
Exactly, because these guys are planning an event.
The NBA will not want to hear that. They shouldn't want to hear that. Okay, it's 300, return 150. This was non-refundable. For a state like Rivers, 300 million is not so. They have lost that in, for instance, reconstructing the burned down State House of Assembly. Is billions. They can afford to lose another 300 to a reputable body like the NBA. So that they are making that request is only aimed at embarrassing the NBA. The NBA is made up of very sound people mentally. They are great lawyers and all that. They should have sensed some stain on their reputation if this thing goes public. The moment they realize that you have a hostile administrator who is making the quickly pay off and have your peace. Make your peace.
This decision by the sole administrator to take
to request that was hostile. So they should have that tells you that something is going wrong, and the NBA should have.
You smell a witch hunt, trying to track down on every activity that the governor had, taken part of.
You can't rule that out, which is still it must be very poor of the administrator to be doing that. You can't undo everything that your predecessor did. Governance is not around on doing it. All governors, all presidents who set out to literally undo everything that their predecessors do end up being. You have Trump. Every small area is complaining about Biden. Biden started yesterday was complaining about Biden starting the Ukraine war, which is partly true. But then everything is Biden. But then you are not throwing up the positives, certain things that Biden did right. The idea of bashing your predecessor is mostly in the negative area. And
isn't it too early to call Fubara a predecessor? I mean, this man is just supposed to be here for, if we follow what he says.
I don't think it has to do with, it has to do with the temperament, not the time frame. It's the temperament of the man sitting in power. So I believe that I worked with a governor, Father Adasu, who said all the negatives that the former governor did, he's not playing them up. He will play up the good things that he did. And I have learned a lot from that. The negatives, if he had to talk to him, he would talk to him quietly. Can we look at this? Are you satisfied? I want to, he would do it quietly, but he will not open up to the public on the areas that this is. I think a lot of governance needs to be to take care of those values.
Okay.
In Nigeria.
I must say that whatever the sole administrator is doing over there in River State is really telling on the people, because I've seen lots of people, business owners, complain that due to the cancellation of the NBA in Port Harcourt, businesses are. I mean, I know
that is what I was telling you.
Who had all his rooms were booked. Now
so
he has to refund.
the 300 that was given out to NBA and all that, you give with one hand, collect with the other. Good business. A lot of states across the country would be willing to do that. They're addressing the NBA to the whole country, seeing how a governor, maybe from Taraba or wherever, obscure governor, is now addressing NBA, hosting it and all that. It's a big deal. So first the governor, the sole administrator would have said, well, I will host it, no problem. He has an opportunity to talk to the country on a number of things. It is taking it from as something positive that happened during the Fubara era. But then that obsession with saying, look, because Fubara was sacked, everything he did was wrong, is what pushed him to the postponement. And I think we have a lot to learn. There's a need to play down on the negatives of your predecessor. Even when you leave, the new man who takes over from you is going to, if he's circumspective enough, he will pick, if he uses microscope instead of eyes, he will say, look, you did very badly here, I can make it public, and you will not like it. So there must be better ways of addressing the failures. Nobody is infallible. Only God is. So
all right, thank you so much, Mr. AGBINDA Sebastian, for coming on the show this beautiful morning with us. I always like to give my guests a high five. A high one. Aha.
Privileged.
All right. It's been interesting joining us on the paper reviews this morning. We're going to go and join sports. And don't forget that by 8:30, we'll have Daisy and Michael on Eastern Circle Voices from the East. And I will be back at about 9 o'clock to have an interesting conversation. You do not want to miss any part of it. This is Rapid Dawn.
Magic has hit your imagination of TV. A brand new sundial with StarTime's inbuilt technology. New TV innovation with an inbuilt decoder that connects you to both StarTime's antenna and satellite signal. StarTimes Sundial TV, you can enjoy over 300 local and international channels, 1 month StarTimes highest bouquet for free, automatic system update. More benefits, more affordable. StarTimes Sundial TV is available in all StarTimes branches and dealers countrywide. StarTimes Inside, entertainment inbuilt.
Are you missing out on interviews, music, entertainment, thought-provoking discussions, and more? Don't sweat it, man. We've got you covered. No matter where you are, be part of the action 24/7, online and live.
On Facebook, it's Rapid FM Umahia. On Instagram, it's official Rapid FM. And on X, it is Rapid FM 965. Tune in to Rapid 96.5 FM or listen to us live on our website at www.rapidfm965.com or radiogarden.com. Better yet, get our mobile app from the Google Play Store. Catch the pulse of the Southeast on Rapid 96.5 FM, the sound of your city.
Hey, Oyanam, all six of radio.
Glad to have you join us on Rapid Sports this Wednesday morning.